In the latest issue of the journal PNAS, a group of researchers argue that the extinction of the dinosaurs actually started 10 million years before the asteroid hit Earth. So here's the evidence, why scientists think this is right, and how this changes our understanding of one of the biggest events in Earth's history. The end of the Cretaceous period, which saw the extinction of the dinosaurs, is marked by a dramatic event, the Chicxulub asteroid impact. This was an asteroid about 7 miles or 11 kilometers wide that slammed into Earth near the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico around 66 million years ago. And it had pretty immediate consequences. We know that because the rock that the asteroid blasted up into the atmosphere blocked sunlight and caused global temperatures to plummet. And then there were all the tsunamis and earthquakes and non-avian dinosaurs going extinct and like 75% of all species disappearing. Yeah, pretty dramatic stuff. But while that asteroid certainly dealt a death blow to life on Earth, scientists are increasingly convinced that it wasn't the sole cause of the end of the Cretaceous. In fact, they now believe that the asteroid just kind of pushed Earth over the edge after a long period of decline for many of Earth's inhabitants, including our fishy ancestors. In the new study, an international team of paleontologists presented evidence that the mass extinction at the end of the Cretaceous actually started in the latest Cretaceous stage called the Maastrichtian. Now, the Maastrichtian lasted from 72.1 to 66 million years ago. So this extinction event actually began more than 10 million years before the asteroid impact. Now that might sound surprising, but there have been hints that the end of the Cretaceous was drawn out for a long time before the asteroid impact, for more than a few million years actually. For example, back in 2009, researchers analyzed fossil pollen from the Hell Creek Formation in Montana. That's the same formation where fossils of Tyrannosaurus rex and Triceratops have been found. And they discovered that the diversity of plant species in this area declined gradually throughout the last few million years of the Cretaceous. But then, after the asteroid impact, that diversity plummeted even more dramatically. So the data suggested that while the asteroid did cause massive destruction, the ecosystem was already on a downward spiral for a long time beforehand. In 2018, another study came along with evidence for this gradual decline. This research team examined microscopic fossils of single-celled organisms called foraminifera from 3 locations in the western interior seaway. This was an ancient seaway that existed in what is now the central part of North America. And these forams, which live in the ocean, told a story much like the pollen. They indicated that while most of the Maastrichtian stage was relatively stable, biodiversity started declining around 1 million years before the asteroid impact. Then again, when the asteroid did strike, there was an even more rapid drop in biodiversity. But in the new study, this team wanted to find evidence for the gradual decline in the marine sediments of the western coast of India. The researchers collected sediment samples from 2 different locations along the coast, one farther north in the Mahabal region and one farther south in the Maldives. These sites had previously yielded fossils from the end of the Cretaceous, so the team knew they were in the right place. Then they focused their investigation on a type of plankton called coccolithophores. These are tiny photosynthetic organisms with calcium carbonate skeletons. The skeletons are made up of a bunch of plates that fit together like a mosaic, and they come in a huge variety of shapes and sizes. And since coccolithophores live in the sunlit surface waters of the ocean, their fossils are often found in high abundance in marine sediments. And just like the forams in Canada, the coccolithophores showed signs of decline before the asteroid impact. The Mahabal samples revealed that the number of different species declined by 45% compared to earlier in the Maastrichtian. And in the Maldives, the decline was even more extreme with a 75% reduction in taxonomic diversity. But not only were there fewer species, the coccolithophores also started to get weird. You see, coccolithophores compete with each other for resources like carbon dioxide and sunlight. And typically each species has evolved to occupy a particular niche in the ecosystem. But the researchers noticed that some of the coccolithophores in the Maastrichtian seemed to be generalists able to exploit a range of resources because they lacked the structures that other species used for photosynthesis. It seems like they just kind of went with whatever worked best in a given moment. So while the asteroid impact marked the end of the Cretaceous, the team thinks that these changes in the coccolithophore community may have been a response to environmental changes that began well before the asteroid struck. Their work adds to the growing body of evidence that points to a long-term decline in Earth's ecosystems towards the end of the Cretaceous. The authors suggest that perhaps there were smaller perturbations, things like volcanic activity or slow climatic shifts that gradually changed the environment and allowed opportunistic species like the generalist coccolithophores to take over. And their dominance could have made the ecosystem more vulnerable to the asteroid impact. So instead of being the sole cause of the mass extinction, the asteroid acted as the straw that broke the camel's back. That said, the asteroid certainly didn't help matters. After it slammed into Earth, there would have been a sudden influx of debris into the atmosphere, which would have reflected more sunlight away from Earth and cooled the planet. It's estimated that within 1 year, global temperatures fell by about 18 degrees Celsius. And that temperature drop, combined with all the other chaos that the impact caused, like massive earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, tsunamis, and the end of the food chain, probably doomed the remaining generalist coccolithophores along with all the other life that couldn't adapt quickly enough to the sudden change. Even though the asteroid got the blame for the extinction event for a long time, the evidence that there was ecological decline before it hit has been piling up. A 2018 paper that looked at insects trapped in amber, for example, found that insect diversity in the lacustrine period had been dropping for several million years before the impact. But while there's a lot of evidence for a pre-existing decline, no one has been able to say exactly what caused it. Scientists have put forward lots of hypotheses, but none have been widely accepted. Some researchers blame a long-term cooling trend that started around 100 million years ago and resulted in the world becoming a couple of degrees colder than it is today. Others have blamed changes in sea level, volcanic activity, or even a supernova that happened nearby. But all of these potential causes have weaknesses and none of them have been proven. Still, scientists are confident that the Chicxulub impact was the final nail in the coffin. We can date the impact layer, the rock layer that contains the asteroid's debris, to a point right at the end of the Cretaceous. And we can see the effects of that impact in the fossil record too. Fossils from right below the impact layer show thriving ecosystems, but those from above show mass extinctions. Plus, scientists have dated the age of the asteroid at about 66 million years old. And other lines of evidence converge on this age as well. For example, there's a thin layer of iridium at the end of the Cretaceous in places as far away as Tunisia and New Zealand, and that's consistent with a large asteroid impact. Iridium is rare on Earth, but it's common in asteroids. So it's a good indicator that something extraterrestrial crashed into our planet, and that crash caused major changes in Earth's geology, like a shift in the balance of magnetic poles. All of this fits together to tell us that the asteroid impact was definitely a thing, and it definitely caused big changes. But while it was certainly a major stressor for life on Earth, the impact didn't happen in a vacuum. There were already stresses building up in the biosphere, and they created a perfect storm with the asteroid. And it's a reminder that major events like mass extinctions aren't usually caused by a single factor. Instead, they're usually the result of a complex web of interacting factors. So in the case of the end of the Cretaceous, I guess you could say that the asteroid really was the least of everyone's worries, but it was still pretty bad. Thanks for watching this episode, and thanks especially to our pandemonium of patrons. Our patrons could submit video suggestions to our public suggestion box, and our producers pick out the best ones to make videos about. So if you have an idea for a future episode, you should definitely consider becoming a patron because it helps us grow and make even more great science videos.